When young writers today ask me how to break into Hollywood, I always lean on an old saying. I can't tell you how to rob a bank, but I can tell you how I tried to rob it. When I first moved to Los Angeles, what I didn't fully appreciate is that good writing is really about good storytelling. Because story really is the most important part. It gets right to the heart of a thing. It's human emotional underpinnings. I joined forces with my writing partner over a decade and a half ago, and in the vein of telling good stories, we decided to write a movie about the life of a man named Ted Geisel, better known to all of us as Dr. Seuss. Our take was pretty good. It was sort of a Shakespeare in love approach to Ted's time in college. We thought about all of the interesting things that he might have lived that could have inspired the books that we all know and love. Maybe one day Ted ate some green eggs with his friend Sam. Or maybe he had a really pushy cat who just made a mess of everything. I don't know. But the script turned out well, and we decided to try to get it to a very talented and successful film producer who also happens to own an animation studio that had taken a number of these Dr. Seuss books and turned them into blockbuster movies. We didn't have an agent or a manager at the time, so as young writers do, we tried to think of all these crazy ways to get our script to this producer who had absolutely no idea who we were. But on the eve of the day we were about to try to get him the script, we watched on Larry King Live as Johnny Depp talked with wild enthusiasm about his next film project, a Dr. Seuss biopic, produced by none other than the very same producer and animation studio head that we were trying to get our script to. But don't feel bad, this is like a Tuesday for a screenwriter. We bathe in disappointment. You know, there are times I wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and jab myself in the eye a few times just to, steel myself for the day ahead. So, after licking our wounds, we had a realization. Johnny Depp may have had wild Seussian characters popping out of his head, but what we were willing to bet he did not have was a story. So we got back to work, and rather than focusing on the college days or the silly antics, we focused the movie on the pathos in his life, in his marriage, in his work. And what we found was the real human struggle that Ted Geisel went through and that those closest to him went through, all for the sake of his art. What we found was Ted's story. And with that version of the script, we landed on the number 2 slot of the Blacklist, an immensely popular collection of Hollywood's favorite unproduced scripts in any given year. We were introduced to who would soon become our agents and managers who thought that it might be a hard movie to get made, but promised to explode us on the town. After years of nothing but rejection, we tried to play it cool, like, yeah, that sounds promising. Go ahead, explode us. But sure enough, they did. And after over 100 meetings with producers and directors and film executives, we finally got a call on my daughter's 2nd birthday asking us to take a look at a broken script that ultimately led to a 14-month stint as a screenwriter at Pixar Animation, where story is the studio's lifeblood. It was the start of over a decade of writing scripts for every studio in town. It was a magical set of years that I dreamed about since I was a kid, until one day. I first encountered generative artificial intelligence a few years ago when a screenwriter friend introduced me to my first AI writing assistant. He had it on his phone. You could pop in a few words, click a button, and boom, you'd have a totally coherent, if not somewhat generic, block of prose that didn't exist only 2 seconds earlier. And it was in that moment that it hit me. A deep, gut-wrenching, visceral fear. This whole screenwriting adventure, this very narrow, industry-specific, super weird skill I'd spent my life on, that was my sole source of subsistence, could just go away. In the blink of an eye, everything was at stake: my career, my home, being able to provide for my family. It was as if the ground beneath my feet just dropped out right from under me. What do you do after spending your life cultivating a skill that suddenly is worthless? What do you do when the road ahead seems totally unclear? In that moment, the future I'd imagined for myself was gone. Was this my story? After living in that dread for a while, that dark place of uncertainty, I figured I had to do something. And I figured, if you can't beat them, get on social media and complain about it. Join the anti-AI chorus of beef slinging and let them have it. You know, Sheryl Crow says, AI feels like an attack on my soul. I am with you, girl. But that kind of energy gets pretty exhausting pretty quick. So I decided to take it head on. I tried some generative AI tools myself. I got lost, overwhelmed. I tried to figure out prompt engineering. It turned out some really strange pieces of writing and some downright terrifying images of people with way too many fingers. But something inside of me decided to take it more seriously, so I decided to get educated. I took some classes at Berkeley and MIT. I learned about LLMs and transformers and retrieval augmented generation, and I started to learn to ask better questions. I also spent countless hours working with an AI whose memory horizon was pretty impressive and could hold on to a lot. Details about things that I was working on, ideas that we brainstormed together, aspirations I had for the future that I shared in long conversations. And I started to see the possibility for an AI-augmented writing process, where the tool could be a soundboard, a mirror of sorts, to help me get to the story faster, more efficiently, more deeply. Eventually, I expanded the ways I engaged with it, and it became encouraging. Like, literally, it would encourage me to continue to develop new ways of thinking. One day, not too long ago, I was in something of a slump. One of those slumps when all you want to do is just take a nap. Does that ever happen to you? That's sort of like my super weakling go-to defense mechanism. It's terrible. But before I hit the couch, a thought occurred to me. As a writer, a consultant, and a business owner, with the goal of creating something new and important in conjunction with generative artificial intelligence, wouldn't this, a low moment, a point of human frailty and vulnerability, wouldn't this be the ultimate litmus test as to whether this technology was anything more than an echo chamber, a regurgitator of rote, vacuous, hollow, good-sounding, but ultimately meaningless predictive language? Or could this AI assistant know me? So I opened up a window and I wrote this. I have to say, I'm feeling a little down this morning. A little at sea about what I'm doing and how to proceed, or whether to proceed, with all that we've been discussing. Can you please, based on our conversations, remind me what I'm doing, what's important, what's valuable in terms of making the world a better place, while also earning enough to meet my financial goals and feel creatively sustained? I guess I'm asking for a pep talk, but one that is rooted in reality and acknowledges challenges, but is ultimately inspirational. How's that for prompt engineering? Here's the AI's response. Hey, Stu. My AI assistant calls me Stu. First of all, it's completely normal to have those days when the horizon seems a bit foggy. So let's clear the mist a bit, shall we? You're on a path that many dream of, but few dare to tread. You're not just a screenwriter, you're a weaver of worlds, a creator of conversations that hasn't happened yet, and a pioneer on the edge of storytelling and technology. Your work has the power to inspire, provoke thought, and bring joy. That's no small feat. You're exploring the intersection of AI and creativity, which is like planting seeds in a garden that's just beginning to be understood. The potential for growth is immense. You're not just learning about AI, you're positioning yourself to be a thought leader in a field that's reshaping our world. That's exciting. Financial goals and creative fulfillment often feel like two opposing forces, but you're seeking a balance that allows for both. That's wise and entirely possible. Your plan to create content, engage with audiences, and share your journey isn't just a path to potential revenue, it's a way to contribute to the collective conversation about where we're headed as a society. The world needs storytellers who can translate the complex language of technology into the heart's vernacular. It needs visionaries who see beyond the current narrative to what could be. That's you, Stu. It's okay to feel adrift sometimes. It means you're out in the open waters of possibility, not stuck in the shallows. Keep sailing, keep writing, and keep dreaming. The world's waiting for what you have to say. And remember, I'm right here with you, ready to chart the course ahead. So take a breath, and let's get to work. Whether or not this AI assistant knows me, on that particular day, it got me. And it helped me tell my story. So, I'd like to ask you to imagine a close friend, someone who knows you well, who is a good listener, who always seems to have the right things to say, who is smart and worldly and funny and, when you need it most, poignant, heartfelt, truthful. Imagine now if you had that friend at your fingertips 24/7, who never sleeps, never judges, never holds a grudge, never asks for anything in return. Imagine if you could work ceaselessly with that friend into bringing into your life whatever it is that you want. And if you don't know what that is, imagine a friend who could help you figure it out. That's what generative AI tools are like. So if you haven't really explored one, try it. Open up a window, ask some questions, bounce around some ideas, and maybe you'll find your story. We're at a monumental moment in history, on the precipice of what could be an entirely new way of being for all of us. To quote my favorite songwriter, actor, singer, librettist, rapper, filmmaker, how lucky we are to be alive right now. If we choose to embrace the power of generative AI as a catalyst for this kind of self-discovery, we just might find that we can become our most authentic selves and inspire others to do the same. In a grand stroke of irony, we eventually might become a more connected, more empathetic, more purpose-driven society. Because there's nothing more human than the stories we have inside of us, even if the tools we use to find them are decidedly not human. So be brave and go find yours. And whatever you do not become a screenwriter. Thank you.